Thank you very much, Mr. Jagdeo, for talking with us. It's been 5 months since the elections. It must be very overbearing.
It is.
How do you manage that frustration?
Well, added to the frustration around the issues surrounding the elections, we also have the restrictions imposed by COVID-19. So it makes it very difficult now to practice normal politics. You can do that, but by doing so, you will put people at risk. And that is why.
What do you mean? Do you mean like protests, normal politics?
Right. I think there is room for a more aggressive type of politics in Guyana to demonstrate to APNU and the rest of the world how people feel about their attempts to frustrate the declaration of the results of the elections. People are extremely angry on the ground. They're raring to come out on the streets and show that frustration in a peaceful manner. But were we to lead them into that, it will put them at risk, and I think we also risk losing the coalition, the international coalition, that has been very appreciative of the patience exercised by the people of Guyana. In all their statements, they mention this, whilst they continue to be very concerned about the non-declaration of the results. So this is, you know, a lot of people call me all the time and they say, when are you coming on the streets? When are you going to lead the PPP supporters onto the street? It's time that APNU gets a wake-up call. If they think that they can stage a few tiny protests around the country and that is expressive of the will of the people, we can show them by putting thousands of people on the street how angry people are. But I've had to talk down those leaders from the communities because I think it's counterproductive at this point in time, although we may come to that if APNU acts in an extreme way, but it will put them at risk.
What could possibly be more extreme at this point?
I think right now, the ball is still with GCOM, and I do hope that the chair, who has been extremely patient and responsive to APNU, believing that she's dealing with reasonable people, so giving them numerous opportunities to do the right thing. I do hope that that comes to an end almost immediately. They've had enough opportunities to go to the courts, to relitigate issues that have already been litigated. Now the latest situation before the court, they're asking the court to endorse fraudulent figures, that is the Mingo's declaration, to be part of the conspiracy and the elections fraud. And it seems as though they will not end. Today I heard they filed private criminal charges against the chair of GCOM. So thinking that you can act in a reasonable manner with people who are hell-bent on frustrating the will of the Guyanese people and defying the international community is wishful thinking. I think the chair needs to act in a stern manner. She's empowered to do so and bring a conclusion to this matter. Too many people are demanding this now across the country, including many APNU supporters. They just want this to end so they can go on with their lives.
So where does your patience run out?
It's wearing thin. I must say it's wearing thin, but it's fortified. We're fortified in the knowledge that the entire Guyanese community, excepting a few riggers who have been out there misleading people, that the entire Guyanese community, political parties, civil society, the media, as well as the international community, they're all on the side of truth, and they're all on the side of democracy and law and order. And that gives us strength to persevere. So we will continue with this approach unless Granger decides that he's going to act as he's been called to do outside of the framework that has been established by our Constitution.
Do you fear that that could happen? That the Constitution could be put aside and that they will remain in office for as long as they think they can?
I had spoken early about this, and I believe the mindset, they're under siege now. Granger is under siege, and the mindset is one of an embattled person. Reason goes out the window in that state of mind. And so he believes now the narrative peddled to him by Harman and the others. At the beginning, one could have said that he had a reasonably open mind, but that has changed.
So do you believe that he is being misled, that he has nothing to do with this?
I think now he is in the thick of things, that he wants to remain in power. He knows he has lost the election. He wants to remain in power. Therefore, he is willing to believe anything they tell him. And they have been constantly putting out a narrative, a changing narrative. One time they won the elections, one time they want new, fresh elections, another time they won again and they would use Mingo's figures. I lost count of the number of times that they have changed the narrative. But he keeps believing this. And then they've rolled out some of the extremists, the Hamilton Green and the Lincoln Lewis and Benchcop and Rickford Burke, all to say to him, you're a weak leader. You have to work now to save Afro-Guyanese. You're fighting the good fight. They're not fighting any fight for Afro-Guyanese. In fact, they didn't care much about Afro-Guyanese in the 5 years they managed the country. They're more interested in maintaining this corrupt cabal in government. And so that is what my fear is, that he succumbs to this nonsense and then he does something extreme. Now, that will remove the firewall that he has placed between himself and the declaration of the results. He has said, oh, it's GCOM, I'm awaiting GCOM. And people have to, the international community can't fault that too much because he's awaiting GCOM. Never mind, he's trying to undermine the declaration through his surrogates. But the moment he acts, for example, Lincoln Lewis said, cancel the elections. Now, he has no authority to do that. You have no authority. You're a presidential candidate who has lost the elections and you want to cancel the elections.
But he's still president.
Yes, but the Constitution doesn't provide for any cancellation of elections. That's one. Two, if he were to cancel the elections, just let's think this through to the end.
Cancel elections meaning calling fresh elections?
No, meaning the cancel elections. So let's think it through to the end, because in that state of siege, I don't think they think things through to the end. So you're going to have to rule by decree, because you can't reconvene the parliament because the parliament was dissolved, all the seats dissolved. So you can't, as president, assign seats, say here PPP will take 20, I'm declaring the results of the elections, PPP will take 31 and we'll take 33. So that means ruling without parliament. No country in this world, even in the constitutional monarchies in the world now, do you have a president that is ruling by decree. So the weight of the international community will fall upon his head like never before. And I don't think he is not sensible. Well, maybe in this embattled stage, he's not thinking things through, but it will never succeed. Secondly, just imagine if he were to do that. You would have to do this with the complicity of the army and the police, but the army. So they will have to support an unconstitutional president. That brings them in the firing line of the international community, because they now are supportive of an unconstitutional government. The sanctions would fall on their head. And not just sanctions, they'd end up before the International Criminal Court. So they can't be serious about these issues, because I think my fear is that they're so immune to reason now that they may do something silly, but it will not succeed. It will not succeed.
But at this point in time, as you say, the matter remains with GCOM.
GCOM.
The Court of Appeal rules on Thursday. Do you believe that it provides room for an immediate declaration after that ruling?
I believe that should the ruling uphold what the Chief Justice said, is that Lowenfield is not a Lone Ranger. He is subjected to the direction of GCOM.
You don't expect him to be there and present a report that reflects the recount?
Well, so that's one. So that the Court of Appeal, the High Court said this. The CCJ had already ruled on that matter, because when the CCJ set aside Lowenfield's report, by implication, they're saying it's not any report you can present to the GCOM. You can't present a fraudulent report and expect the chair to endorse it. In fact, twice they said in that judgment that the chair was right to say that she cannot annul the elections, and right to say that the chair did not have the infrastructure to investigate any allegations, that Mr. Harmon must now file a petition for his allegations. And they set aside his report. So if they were willing to set aside a report that was fraudulent in the past, and now we have one that is even more fraudulent now, right? Where you have 15,000 voters on this declaration who never even voted. So this will never stand, but this is precisely what they're asking the courts to do. And so this, I know if we had, this was all academic, if so many people were not, their lives were not at stake here and their futures, I would have loved this to go to the CCJ, and it may very well end up there. For Harmon, to lawyers to get up and say to the judges of the CCJ, we're here because you invalidated the recount order when they did not do so. I can imagine what the judges will say. So I'm saying that the chair has acted because she has given opportunities. In many cases, she has self-injunction. She has imposed an injunction on herself because the High Court did not injunct the chair. She gave an undertaking. And I doubt if the ruling upholds the decision of the Chief Justice, then there can't be an injunction too. So there is nothing preventing the chair, and I do hope that she doesn't do the same thing and give an undertaking, rather because not to proceed with the matter if they file an appeal before the CCJ, because that is a self-injunction, and too many lives depend on this. In the meantime, the APNU agents are using the period between these court cases to polarize our people, to spread more lies, etc. They're not acting in good faith, and I hope that the chair sees this and brings this matter to a conclusion swiftly.
But the point I was getting to is that there's still a constitutional reliance on the chief elections officer. Should he have been removed by now?
It's my opinion, yes. Should have been fired a long time ago for presenting fraudulent reports to the commission, and now more so.
But he remains in place. He's still in play at this point in time. Even if a ruling upholds the Chief Justice's ruling, what happens at GCOM tomorrow if a meeting is called?
I hope that the chair addresses this, because if given, she'd be fortified by two decisions, three rather. The CCJ, what the CCJ said, he cannot present any report to you. right? When they invalidated the first report. Then she will be fortified by the Chief Justice's ruling that says these matters were litigated already. The recount order is valid, and that the CEO cannot be a lone ranger. And thirdly, there is the declarations of early March were overtaken by the recount declarations, the statements of recount. So, and then if the Court of Appeal upholds that, she'd have fortification from 3 courts to act in a manner that would say, bring this to a conclusion now. You're acting correctly. The CCJ has pointed this out. Don't worry with the few APNU people who are criticizing you, because they will never be pleased unless you declare a result in their favor. You can't please them.
So, Mr. Jagdeo, this has to end at some point in time. The PPP has clearly won these elections. When it gets into government, how do you try to resolve this mess that we've been put in? There has been a suggestion, for example, in the interest of healing, that you just let this matter with Lowenfield and Mingo and everybody go in the interest of springboard in the development of this country, free of all of that madness.
Well, on the other hand, I think we are getting from a groundswell of opinion from the public. It's almost like a tsunami from them to say, do not negotiate with these the APNU AFC now at this point in time. Do not talk to them anything about power sharing. That is rewarding bullies. And it's coming from both internally and externally. And so we made it clear that there will be no talk about shared governance, a new model for governance in Guyana, until and unless the results of the elections are declared on the basis of the recount figure as upheld by the Caribbean Court of Justice. We have to build the future of Guyana on a lawful constitutional basis. There's no room for bullyism or the rule of the jungle here. That's one. We've made it clear in our manifesto, because we anticipate issues, so we campaign on 2 things. One is that we have to have a new system for managing our elections, if you check our manifesto, and that we will do widespread consultation on that. And secondly, we'd explore a model, a new governance model. And we're still very much committed to those 2 things. Managing elections is even more urgent now, because immediately you have to put in place a series of reforms to ensure that the people of Guyana never will have to go through this again. Immediately, that would be an immediate task. And then talks about the future governance model. So I don't know, people have been saying, on the other hand, some people are saying we have to make examples of people who try to steal the elections. Others are saying, let's give them a free pass. So two schools of thought too.
Which are you inclined towards?
Right now, at this point in time, there is no remorse, no contrition on the part of Lowenfield. Why should I be supportive of any softening up or softening up of an approach to him?
That it would let the country heal and move on?
But Lowenfield, but then you may need a signal for some of these public officers who have put this country through this trauma, the lives of APNU supporters as well as PPP supporters through this trauma. So had he shown contrition, had he shown remorse, had he said, okay, let us do the right thing, I'll submit my report. Repeatedly, the courts have pointed him in the right direction. He knows what the results are. He was the one, and his staff were the ones who certified those the statements of recount, and also the declarations in the recount, the tabulation. And yet he's acting in this illegal, unlawful manner. Therefore, he has no sympathy from me at this point in time. No sympathy. That may change if he acts in an honorable manner, maybe in the next few days, who knows. But then there is another call to say that the APNU, the reason that this cabal led by Harman and the others are digging in, because they have so much skeleton in the cupboard and a lot of corruption. And therefore, we should give them the assurance that they would not be prosecuted for the corruption. And therefore, they may then accept the declaration and move forward. Because, trust me, Neil, they are not doing this for ordinary Afro-Guyanese. They're doing this to maintain themselves. But they don't understand the sanctions. You know, they believe that the visa sanction is the end of it. And not all of them have gotten it. There are others who may soon be receiving their letters. But if this escalates, just imagine they can't have a bank account, or they can't do business with US companies. Then things like Western Union, etc., are sanctioned. They can't remit money into Ghana. Just imagine if the US were to put an embargo or say that you can't export gasoline to Guyana or diesel. In 2 weeks, this whole country is in turmoil. We run out of gas, we run out of diesel, the power shuts down. Venezuela survived because Venezuela was producing. They don't understand the implication that in 2 weeks, what would Granger, the same people who were telling Granger to stay on and to cancel elections, would be the ones cussing him. So they don't understand what they're playing with. And they've been thumbing their nose at the international community. Do you think the international community would allow a gang, this small gang, to go against what they see as a signal to Latin America and the rest of the world? Today, New York Times had a story, and we are now one of the 5 countries that have been listed as having undemocratic rule in the hemisphere.
Well, Mr. Jagdeo, let's look past that hurdle of a declaration. There's a swearing in, there's a PPP government in place. In the interest of moving this country forward, surely you see the need for involving APNU plus AFC, which, you know, is the biggest party outside of the PPP at this point in time. How do you begin to talk with them to push this inclusive governance, this new governance model that you talk about?
I think,
it's
well, first of all,
you agree?
Yes, first of all, that is why we suggested it. It's part of our manifesto. The Parliament, there is a standing committee on constitutional reform. I think that has to be activated, and in a real meaningful way. We have outlined a model in our manifesto that we would like for the parliamentary committee to take, the constitutional reform committee to take. It says 5 from each political party, government and opposition, and 10 from civil society that will do nationwide consultations. We even outlined that in our manifesto. And then it comes back to the parliament and we can move forward. So definitely there is involvement. Even on the oil and gas sector, we in our manifesto said we want to approach this in a bipartisan way. So, because there are some urgent things we have to do. For example, we have to repeal the sovereign wealth fund and make it at more arm's length from the politician. That's the first task. Secondly, we have to get a local content policy in place that really brings benefits to Guyanese companies and individuals. Thirdly, we have to move swiftly on the gas to power project, because within 3-4 years we want to lower the price of electricity by maybe 50% and may have reliable power. These are immediate tasks, and you require more than just the government working on this. You require opposition too, and in a bipartisan way. So there are lots of room for working together. In terms of COVID, we also need a bipartisan approach to this matter. We need to restructure the infrastructure and the logistics that they use. For example, putting more professionals to manage the COVID-19 situation and allow the politicians to be policymakers, give broad direction. Then we need to decentralize resources as well as responsibilities to the regions. We need to urgently procure all of the latest drugs that have shown some efficacy against the disease, as well as protective gear. We need to have strict protocols so that people can open up the economy, we can resume jobs, but you keep the rate of infection low. But look at the president has done a photo op about him being tested. On the other hand, his party has gone around the country, contrary to the order that they promulgated, they passed, bringing people together. And they have not had any leadership. He nor his party has shown no leadership on this matter. Apart from the disease itself, they have not given any help. You have thousands of people out there who immediately need help now. They are on the breadline. So all of those things have to be done. We have to reboot the economy. Don't listen to Jordan. Jordan had a full center page today talking about a 40% growth in the real economy. That he's not talking about jobs. People have lost jobs. Economic activities have shrunk. The revenue is collapsing. They have borrowed more. The size of the overdraft is over $100 billion. The private sector has no incentives. They took away incentives from them. There are hundreds of things that we have to work together. I believe, and there'll be opportunities, not just with APNU AFC, but the smaller political parties and civil society to turn the corner.
So give me a scenario. The PPP is sworn into office. What does a discussion look like between you and, say, Mr. Granger? I say you because I imagine that you, as you said, you will have a lead role in the government of Irfaan Ali.
Right. The president, as we mentioned that, Irfaan Ali has consistently outlined the approach. And let me say publicly now to you that Afro-Guyanese have nothing to fear from the People's Progressive Party in government. There, at some other point in time, those who say, there are many who say the PPP and APNU are the same. And I would like to challenge that. I want to show on the economic front how our policies differed, on taxation, on borrowing, on job creation, on infrastructure, on approaches to industries. I want to show about respect for the Constitution and rule of law, how we differ. I want to show on the democratic front how we are different. We are a very different entity than APNU, and our approach has been different. And we made it clear, we campaign on a platform for benefits for all of our people. So the benefits must go to all Guyanese. So I wanted to say that Afro-Guyanese have nothing to fear, absolutely nothing from a PPP government, because that is what they're trying to work on now, this fear. So you would see immediately an attempt to reboot the economy, to create jobs. We got to put our people back to work. We have to find a medium where we open up the society.
And you will say to APNU, let us work on this together.
We've been saying this, and we were willing to do that. But what will not happen, this will not happen. The People's Progressive Party will not be bullied into any position. We're willing to work in partnership with people. But respect for rule of law and the Constitution must be primary, or else we can't build a society that has freedom as its underlying condition.
It may sound like a stupid question, but is there any other option in this country other than Irfaan Ali being sworn in as president?
No, there is absolutely none. He won the elections, and the entire world accepts that. They've called on Granger to transition into an Irfaan Ali government. The PPP believes in that. All the political parties here, civil society, everyone knows that Irfaan Ali won the elections. So why would there be any other option? Any other option would mean you're not respecting the will of the people. And elections are about respecting the will of the people.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.